I don't know if this video is going to be what you think it's going to be. You see, 5 years ago, I was hitting rock bottoms and finding out there was a little bit more to go. I woke up every day asking myself questions in the mirror, questions that I never thought I'd ever get the answer to. Questions like, will you get to see the day that you have a family? Will you get to see your 20s? Will you get to see you graduating college? And to be honest with you, those days of just almost mentally floating outside my body as I was just going through the everyday routine led me down this path of hopelessness, of feeling like I was undeserving of love. Not only that, also feeling like I was a burden to my friends, also my family. The only answer that I could think of was to end my life. I had attempted to cut my life short, and I didn't follow through because of the image of my mom, my dad, and particularly my Lola, my grandma, who had taken such great care of me as a kid. The image of them finding out what had happened, possibly even thinking that it's their fault for this happening when it really wasn't. It's my fault. A lot of the mistakes that led me down these feelings were mine. And it was my Lola who I think, and my mom who had saved me. But then fast forward a year later, and my Lola passed away. She passed away, and that just led to even more feelings of confusion, hopelessness. And now I got this big old void in my heart, right? Because of all the love that my Lola used to give me at that time. And I remember the day after she passed, I wrote a letter in which I said, hey Lola, waking up today was just different, knowing that you're no longer here on this earth with me. I know things are never going to be the same without your presence, without your love. But things are going to be just fine. And what's funny is that I wrote that without knowing if that was true, if that was going to be true. I didn't know. Like I said, I was still asking myself those questions. Am I going to be able to see my 30s? Am I going to be able to graduate college? And so I was just bluffing, to be honest with you. And so I say all that to make what I'm about to say as unbelievable as I thought, as it was for me. That as of the day that you are watching this video, or as the day of me uploading this video, rather, I will be turning 25 years old, and I am very close to graduating college. I have a purpose, I have a mission. I wake up every day, no longer floating around my body. There are days where that happens, and there are still days where I get very depressed, and there are days where, where I start to see a little bit of the person I was 5 years ago pop out again. But things are fine. Things are fine. And so winding it back a year ago, December 23 of 2022, turning 24, I was like, look, this number is special to me. And that's because number 24, whenever I think of it, I think of the late, great Kobe Bryant. Someone who embodied hard work, hours in silence, the late nights, perfecting your craft, doing something over and over and over again, committing to the process. And that was really sexy to me, is I really dedicated myself to trying to be aware of everything, moving with purpose. And so I wanted to go ahead and share a little bit of a recap of what this past year has been for me, my Mamba year. And also I wanted to give you a couple of lessons that I personally learned that may resonate with you, maybe not. Maybe you just like seeing people on the internet talk, in which case, welcome to Pio's Place. That's where you'll find a lot of that. So yeah, the first things first, the biggest development of my life, I think the last couple of years, has been exactly what I remember Kobe Bryant saying, which was,
you have to dance beautifully in the box that you are comfortable dancing in. My box was to be extremely ambitious within the sport of basketball. Your box is different than mine. Everybody has their own. It's your job to try to perfect it and make it as beautiful of a canvas as you can make it. And if you have done that, then you have lived a successful life. You have lived with Mamba mentality.
To me, that was very hard because, like I said, 5 years ago, I was just trying to survive. I was expending energy just trying to tread water. You see, one of the reasons that I had gotten so low was because in Filipino culture, or not so much in Filipino culture, but in Filipino American families, that is a result of our culture, you are encouraged and sometimes straight up forced to take up jobs. I call them the big five, right? It's doctors, lawyers, engineers, nursing, pharmaceuticals, white collar jobs, what jobs that get you paid so that way they don't have to take care of you. You know, your parents don't have to take care of you. And I was working in kinesiology with the goals of being a physical therapist and, you know, going into sports medicine and whatnot. I was just not motivated. To be honest with you, I just wasn't motivated and I wasn't able to get my classes get right with my classes. I wasn't able to do what I needed to do. That was that feeling of treading water. It was particularly grades. And if you know any Asian, you'll know that there's a great amount of shame that comes from not having an A.
In the grades in the report card, it means something different to Asian parents.
Well, like what?
The A means average.
What?
B means beatings.
C,
Coma.
D,
F.
F.
Okay, the whole family dies.
That night that I had attempted to end my life, I remember talking to my mom and she said, look, maybe this is just not your path. You tried, you found out it wasn't for you, and it's okay to quit as long as you get back up, try another path, and let's see what your life is. And that really, I'm very grateful for her that she said that, because then I was able to, you know, get into business and really embrace this content creation. I was able to find an internship that has given me this purpose, you know, with the CSU Entertainment Alliance at my Cal State. Now, like I said, I found a bit of a mission, of a purpose in my life. I didn't think that was possible, to be honest with you. I didn't think I'd ever be able to commit to so many hours to my day to working on one thing. And fast forward to now, you know, I found my box that I wanted to dance in. So that was lesson number one to me, and development number one, I guess, more so. Learning that it's okay to quit, you know, despite what maybe people think the Mamba mentality is, you know, is never giving up. Hustle, loyalty, and respect. Actually, I think that's someone else. It's okay to give up if it's just something that's just not for you. And look, now I found my purpose. And here's the thing, is part of the Mamba mentality is this expectation like, oh, I'm going to now be the greatest to ever be in that field, right? That's just such an unrealistic expectation to set for yourself. And it's a great expectation, you know, to give yourself the respect and the confidence enough to feel like you can do this. But I didn't have that. So I found myself beating myself up for when I would enter these depressive slumps. But then my therapist, who is something that I will discuss later in a bit, brought up this idea, right, of this mindset shift of stop thinking of it as something that you need to do. You don't need to do this. Like I said, I already went through this period of feeling like I need to do something and it just burying me, but think of it as something that you want to do. See, that changed everything for me, because then it stopped becoming a thing of, why aren't you doing this? You see it on your schedule, you don't get to it, and now I start beating myself up. Instead it becomes, okay, I want to get to that. It becomes enthusiasm. I look at it on the schedule and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna get this and this and this done so I can get to that. What that spawned in me was, again, as I'm finding this box that I want to dance in, now I'm enjoying what I'm doing. And not only that, and that leads into the next step of that is enjoying life. Find myself smiling a little bit more, and not just feeling lighter, but feeling in my body. And that was just a new feeling to me. So this next one, I want to shift gears a little bit. I'm gonna have to start off with a little bit of a story. Last year, as I was getting ready for my Mamba year, I was just getting out of a pretty toxic relationship, one that to this day still has an effect on me in terms of, you know, my ability and my willingness to connect and be vulnerable with other people, willingness to accept love and ask for help. Just like once you've seen how love can go and how much it can sour, even the most hopeless romantic, such as myself, can get a little jaded. So that's been something I've been and still am working through. In finding how to solve that problem, I stumbled upon the next thing I want to talk about, which is autonomy. That is the idea that there are things in life we can control, and on the other end of that spectrum, there are also things that we can't. And part of life is knowing which one's which and just accepting it. And so a really good friend sent me this prayer in a time of need that I think is very appropriate for this discussion. What is also appropriate is to say, I understand faith and religion are topics that are very touch and go. And so I want to take this time to say that I respect whatever faith you may believe in and follow. All are welcome at PO's place. Even if you don't have a faith to follow, that's fine with me too. I just want to present ideas. Maybe it gets the ball rolling in terms of how you want to live your life, regardless of whatever dogmas and philosophies or labels of faiths that you want to follow. I just want to have this cool discussion if that's cool with you. So it's titled the Serenity Prayer, and it goes a little something like this. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I can't change, courage for the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Now, why did I find that so beautiful? Well, even in a prayer where you're asking something to give you this guidance with regards to what you can control and not, there's still this overall tone of accepting that the universe or the world, or in this case, a God, still the one that's going to give you those answers or nudge you in this direction, letting you know that this is something you can't control. So an example from my life that's a little bit more universal, right, is back to my relationship. And to be honest with you, this has affected not just my romantic life, but even friendships, trying to figure out how much of myself to pour into people. And so part of my journey has been figuring out what parts of my life, what variables in the equation I can't control. And so going off of that, I can't control the trauma that has been built up in me, as a result of some of these things that have happened. They've already happened. I can't control the chemicals in my body that may be having me feel some ways on some days and better on some others. I can't control the things that the world decides to do at this point. I can't control the people that come into my life. On the other end, things I can control. I can control who stays in my life and the people whose opinions I value and who I'm willing to trust. I think a big part of me was trying to figure out people who could meet me where I was at, emotionally, spiritually, especially, getting to as low as I had gotten, like I mentioned before. There are times where you talk to people, regardless of how hard they try and how good their intentions are, you just end up feeling alone. It hasn't been easy, and I'm not gonna act like I found my people yet, but I've been doing better. And another thing is I've been reading books. Your boy's a scholar now. If you told me 4 years ago that I would be an avid reader, I would laugh in your face, punch your books down to the ground and yell at you for being a nerd. I'd never been that type. And so this past year, really taking the time to find some good books, some things that are able to open my brain up to, like, scientifically or just logically. Who am I? Why am I feeling these ways? How could that thing that from my past affect me in this way? Now I know about attachment styles. Now I know about intrinsically motivated versus extrinsically motivated. And that goes into a bit of the third thing, which is talking to a medical professional. When you're dealing with these thoughts and emotions, you feel like you're the only one who can understand you. In talking to a therapist and finding one that actually works for me, that journey has been a lot less lonelier. It's been a lot more productive. And I've also been able to really just practice articulating how I feel instead of being this people pleaser who's feeling good. That's always my least favorite part of any conversation, is whenever someone would go, "How are you doing?" And I would just have to be like, "Good," because I just don't want to get into anything. And not to say that I just trauma dump my way through that question, but I am able to do a better job of sorting through my feelings because of this experience with my therapist. So I would heavily implore any one of you to look into, if you're a college student, if your university provides free mental health services, and if your healthcare does, etc., please, I implore you to go get some therapy in, because Lord knows it's helped me. Now, since we're here, I think the next thing I want to talk about will probably be the sappiest part of this whole video, so bear with me. And that is, in this past year, I've been doing the best job of any year in the past of learning how to love myself. Because let me tell you, this old boy had a lot of trouble over the last couple years in terms of even liking myself. Like I said, I would look at myself in the mirror, ask myself questions, and put myself down. And that's just what my daily routine was, to be honest with you. And so coming back to my example, right? Coming out of a toxic relationship, I was talking to my therapist about how scared I was of not necessarily love, but romantic entanglements. And she'd mentioned that, look, it's okay to feel these fears, and it's cool that you're aware of them and that you're being cautious, because 70% of couples, the reason they fight is not because of, you know, their problems, like the couple as a whole. It's because of problems between the two individuals that aren't sorted out, that then leak over into their relationship and become their problems, right? So that scared me because I got a lot of issues. But again, you can control your life. I started pouring into myself and, first of all, trying to figure out what that meant. A couple examples for you. This past year, have gotten into WWE wrestling. I'll be the first one to acknowledge how goofy it is, how silly it is. It's men and women in tights, running around, screaming at each other, jumping on top of each other, throwing each other through tables. That's cool and all, but why I personally started resonating with wrestling is, first of all, the history behind it, the fact that these people put in so much effort to build something that just didn't exist. You know, what was pro wrestling? But they put their all into it, and now you look at the families and the people and the generations of families that come to watch this thing, that tell the stories. It's become kind of like theater, and that kind of goes into the next part of why I love wrestling is this, you know, the eternal dichotomy of good versus evil, the baby faces versus the heels. Seeing how that dynamic plays out, and sometimes the villain sees something good in themselves, chooses to operate out of that.
So guess what? You out. And I'm out too.
Or sometimes maybe the hero, the babyface, decides to turn heel. What does that look like, right? That's interesting to me. That's beautiful. The character work, you know, there's some great character work going on in the WWE right now. And so I went to my very first WWE live event when they came here to San Francisco. That was a blast. I went there alone. That's another thing I wanted to do, was branch past some of my codependency issues. And if I want to do something fun, I'll do it by myself and not second guess myself. It was just, the atmosphere is so cool, seeing little kids running around with their weight belts, screaming catchphrases in the hallways. Seeing these people that you watch on your TV, or, you know, for me, in terms of catching up to the history of it all, getting hip to it, YouTube, like I'm seeing these people live in my face and they're doing their thing. And and the fact that they're traveling all over the world, 2 or 3 shows every week, risking their bodies, I don't know. Like, I was just really encapsulated by the craft of it all. So I was very, very happy to be there. Again, another thing that I never thought I'd do in my adulthood is I actually put out a collection of poems titled Levangelist, based off of this past summer. Actually, I got to spend in LA due to a summer internship, which was a really eventful experience. It gave me a lot of feelings, a lot of doubts, a lot of thoughts of where I was at. I never thought I'd be doing it, you know, in my 20s. Even though I had really, really built that out as a passion when I was a kid. I actually won the 8th grade poetry contest for an original poem, no less, you know. And let me tell you, that collection of poems was not easy to form and come as much as I just want to get words that rhyme and put it out. I really wanted to come from a place of honesty and, you know, like Usher's Confessions, like really just get into it. There are days where I would be looking at, I was physically writing this on a notebook. I would look at my pen and paper and literally just be staring at it for minutes on end, just wondering, like, nothing. Like, bro, you got nothing on your mind right now? You have an endless platform to talk about what you want to talk about. Now you have nothing to say? Like, what? And I was really worried, you know, about the reception to it, if people would care about, you know, some of these thoughts I'm having. But I remember the day I put it out, how I equated to, it was like that first gulp of water after a long day of just walking around, just that relief. You know, I'd gotten messages from people who I hadn't talked to since high school, since middle school, some of them. And so I feel like I got what I wanted out of that. And I wouldn't have been able to do that if I didn't feel like I was worthy enough to give myself the confidence, to write and say what was on my mind. And I mean, also just start this whole thing that you're currently watching me on, Pio's Place, this whole channel had already come from a channel from my other podcast, that's where you're here from, that, was pretty successful and had already built a pretty good fan base. But I really just wanted to create a space that was different. I'm grateful for everything we did on there. I'm excited to see what we do here. Again, I hope you'll be here on this journey. I'm very happy you're here with me right now. Let's go on to the next thing. Now, the next thing I want to discuss is something that I actually learned in the process of reflecting on this whole year, making this video. Like I said, Mamba year, looking back and seeing all the things that I've done and actually being proud of myself for once. There's a little bit of doubt that crept in. It's like, you didn't do enough. You wanted to do all this and that, but you only got to here. I don't really know how else to say it other than just saying it. This life isn't meant for us to be good, to be bad, to be perfect. We just are on here to wake up and to also try to be better than we were the day before. Now, the truth of the matter is, we probably aren't going to succeed in doing that every single day. Lord knows how many days that I've been unproductive, days that the blanket just felt so comfortable and so heavy to take off. And to be honest with you, this whole process of, improving myself, working on myself or whatever, I really thought that I'd be further along than I am. And I really thought it was going to be like one of these, but it turns out it's actually like one of these, which kind of sucks. But that's also the reality of the situation. You got to do the work, right? It's a process. And that curve right there, that is to me the Mamba mentality, right? That dedication to turning that corner into the direction that you want your life to be in as a result of, again, whatever that purpose is, whatever that box you want to dance in is. Now, I know there's this stigma on what the Mamba mentality is, and that it's, just being tough and never quitting, hustle, loyalty, and respect. Again, let me know where that's from. I swear it's from something. Accepting nothing less than perfection. But that's not how I'm going to choose to define Mamba mentality. In fact, I have seen a lot of interviews with Kobe over the years, and I think he would disagree with that as well. How I'm choosing to define it is perseverance, is when you get knocked down, when you do feel like giving up, to know that you're worthy of getting yourself back up and giving it another go. Because look, I want to give this life a full shot. It's the only one we got, as far as I know. This year wasn't all productive. I would go as far to say that this past year was probably the toughest year of my life. That and the one 5 years ago, very different, because I found my purpose and I found what I want to provide in this world. And that is hopefully a good conversation with you, one that you wanted to have, needed to have, or just wanted to listen to, and just hear this old guy rant about his past year. Whatever reason you're here for, I'm happy you're here, and I hope we can continue having conversations like this. That has been my Mamba year. I want to hear about yours. Please feel free to leave in the comments what you plan to do with your Mamba year. Again, 2024, this is all our Mamba years. So what your ambitions are, maybe how you want to get there, with no judgment whatsoever. Any thoughts you had on some of the lessons and stories that I told you guys. And so I want to wrap this video up by leaving you with something that I found great solace in, something that I really want to emphasize in the process of this whole video, and that is, it's not the days that define you, it's the weeks and months. And I only hope that these next coming months, weeks are filled with purpose and progress and love that I want to give to you. And so yeah, this has been Pio's Place. Y'all are welcome back anytime. But until that next time, take care. Peace.